Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's Heritage Management MA webinar, offer holders webinar. So we're not going to start the presentation yet. We're just starting the broadcast and waiting for more people. And the webinar will start shortly. But if you have any questions at all, and then feel free to send this over to us on using the Q&A chat panel. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you all so much for waiting. My name is Hannah, and I am from the recruitment team at the School of Business and Management. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on obtaining an offer to study the Heritage Management MA at Queen Mary University of London. So for today's offer holder webinar, you will hear from Dr. Ed Lagan as well as Dr. John Davis. They are the program directors for the MA Heritage Management programs. You will also hear from Ian McLaughlin, who is basically our senior careers coach, and Paige, one of our current students, will share her experience of studying the course as well as studying at Queen Mary. And afterwards, Lucy Worsley, who's basically the chief curator at Historic Royal Palaces, will also join us for the Q&A session. You can also ask us any questions at any point during the session, and we will answer this using the chat or later on over the mic after the presentations. So without further ado, I will now hand you over to Dr. John Davis and Dr. Ed Lagan.
Morning, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Um, just to say a big welcome to everyone. It's great that you've joined us and that you're interested in the course. And it's a real pleasure to be able to say a bit more about the course and talk about the way in which we are going to be managing things over the coming year. And it's also a real pleasure to be able to introduce you to some of my colleagues and also to one of our students on the course, Paige, who'll be speaking to you later on. But just to start off by saying a big hello again. My name's John Davis. I'm a professor at the Queen Mary University, but actually also Director of Heritage Management at Historic Royal Palaces, and I act as course coordinator at HRP. I've also got a background in research around heritage related subjects, and you will be seeing a lot of me as the course progresses from September, because I essentially do a lot of the organisation and introduce many of the practitioners from across HRP. So it's a pleasure now to be able to hand you over to my Queen Mary colleague.
Hello everyone, thanks very much for coming along. My name's Ed Legon and I'm lecturer in Heritage Management at Queen Mary University of London, so John's counterpart at Queen Mary. I'm an early modern historian by research, but I have interests in the history of heritage practices, memory, and how both of these intersect with political culture. And until 2018, I was research manager and interim head of research at Historic Royal Palaces.
Great, thanks Ed. I don't know if you want to say something to start off with about the values of Queen Mary.
Absolutely. John and I wanted to begin by advertising some of the values to which both Queen Mary and Historic Royal Palaces subscribe. So Queen Mary is a proud signatory of UN's PRIME initiative, whose mission is to transform business and management education and develop responsible leaders for tomorrow. This includes a particular focus, as you'll see on the slide, on social justice, sustainability, and good governance in research and teaching. And John, I'm sure, will allude later to HRP's own commitment to diversity and inclusivity in heritage management.
Super, thanks very much. Which takes me neatly on to talk about the collaboration, which essentially lies at the heart of the Masters in Heritage Management. It is a collaborative master's course. It's a true collaboration. I would probably place it at around 50-50 in terms of the way in which the course is delivered and the student experience. Ed has already said something about Queen Mary, and it's worth underlining that Queen Mary University is a highly regarded university with a very strong reputation for its research and for its teaching. It's one of the so-called Russell Group of universities, which are essentially the kind of leading research universities in the UK. It's also, however, as we'll talk about in a second, based in the East End of London and has a reputation for diversity and inclusivity in terms of its teaching practice. And in a way that works as a very good counterpoint to HRP, Historic Royal Palaces, which many of you already may know, is the organisation. It's a charitable organisation which essentially runs 6 of the UK's leading heritage sites, and those include Hampton Court Palace, which you can see as the sort of base for the course, and where many of the classes take place, the Tower of London, Kensington Palace, Kew Palace, the Banqueting House, which is part of the old Whitehall Palace, based very close to Downing Street, and also a more recent acquisition, Hillsborough Castle and Gardens, which is based in Northern Ireland. So HRP manages those 6 sites, and it's seen as a highly successful organisation by people in the know in terms of heritage. So it's a sector leader, if you like, and I think in that sense, it means that the experience that you gain on the course is well regarded when you go ahead and start applying for jobs in other heritage organisations, and also the kinds of practices and people that you encounter at HRP are seen as in the forefront of knowledge about heritage management. So, and I would say that this reputation also extends abroad. So we do have obviously many foreign visitors to our site. The Tower of London is a particularly popular site for foreign tourists, but the organisation itself is networked around the world in terms of heritage, and exerts quite a pull, I think, both in North America and in Asia and Australasia. So together the two organisations make an interesting combination, and a very fruitful combination. I'll just move us on now. I thought it might be quite a useful thing to just discuss in general terms the concept of heritage management, because some people do sort of ask themselves what this is, and I think there is a kind of ambivalence about what heritage management means, but it's a very useful ambivalence, or a very indicative ambivalence. Heritage management can mean, for example, the theory of heritage, and by which we mean the scholarship around heritage and the ethical dimensions of heritage, the decisions that have to be made and the philosophical principles which underpin them. So it can mean the management of heritage questions from this theoretical viewpoint. But heritage management can also be interpreted in quite a kind of hard-nosed business sense. So it could mean the way in which heritage sites and heritage organisations are managed in terms of human resources, finances, legal parameters, and these sorts of aspects, organisational culture, because of course management or heritage organisations are simply particular types of organisations. Many of them are private sector or charitable, and therefore part of the business landscape. And thirdly, I think heritage management can also mean the practice of heritage and knowledge of the various practices, whether that be conservation or curatorship. There are many, or archaeological practices or buildings maintenance. There are many practices which are components of heritage management. So these are three general areas which together probably can all be put under the heading of heritage management. Of course, they're not mutually exclusive and they do overlap. And in fact, one of the sort of driving forces behind our course is the notion that good heritage managers will have a firm grasp of all three areas and be able to fire on all fronts. So the next slide asks the question why heritage management is important, and the first bullet point is a sort of neat follow on from the previous slide. The heritage profession, it's widely seen, needs competent decision makers, and competent decision makers in the heritage management sector are going to be people who not only understand the theoretical and ethical dimensions of heritage, and also know about the various practices that are kind of in operation within heritage organisations, but they're also able to make decisions which are seen as competent in a business sense. So the course, in a sense, is producing professional heritage managers, and it's arguable that these sorts of people are needed now more than ever in the heritage sector. I'm sure many of you know that the heritage sector has been affected not just in the UK but around the world by, for example, the COVID epidemic, and it's really placed the heritage sector under a great deal of stress. And it's at times like this when good heritage management skills are particularly required and particularly cherished within organisations. The heritage sector is in transition generally. It is the case that increasingly heritage organisations are having to acknowledge and import business skills. and reach out beyond simply being state-supported organisations or conversely being entirely privately owned. They now have to think about sustainability. And so you see across the world, in all sorts of societies, increasing awareness of and appreciation of sustainability in a business sense. So they are transitioning, and there's a great deal of change globally, and it's a very interesting landscape to watch. Thirdly, heritage is a constant battle in terms of the preservation of heritage sites. And so heritage management is extremely relevant and applied. Preserving heritage is a constant battle, and it's often high profile. For example, whether or not you're reading about the threats that exist to the UNESCO World Heritage status of the Tower of London, or whether or not you're reading about reservoirs being formed in the Middle East, which are bringing heritage sites into danger. These things are highly political, they're highly relevant, and often quite provocative. And of course, this takes us on to very current concerns, such as Black Lives Matter, where everyone will have been aware of the discussions that are now going on about sculpture and artwork across heritage sites and how to reinterpret these and how to reevaluate them. Similarly, however, climate change is a major factor now for heritage sites. Climate warming, increasing drought, increasing rainfall are placing heritage sites under threat. And so heritage management is very much a current affairs topic, and not necessarily something which is simply about history. I would also point out that heritage conservation is of rising concern in developing states. As these states transition politically, so too do their heritage sites come under discussion. But one of the issues about heritage is that it is a great generator of economic wealth, or it can be. And so developing states are often now beginning to look at their heritage sites as potentially very important in terms of getting their sites going and transitioning and growing wealth. And we see that across the world. The question of how to achieve sustainability when society and economies are in transition is a very important area. And when we are trying to achieve sustainability, the questions of who owns the heritage and whose heritage it is come to the fore, and these can be highly politicized discussions. And so a good grounding in heritage management can be very useful in terms of then contributing to these current discussions. And similarly, heritage is very much a subject of international relations. I've already mentioned UNESCO, but heritage and cultural heritage goes to the heart of many discussions about human rights and, for example, discussions about genocide and the destruction of cultural heritage. So, so heritage management is not just current, political, it's very important, and it can make a great contribution on all sorts of levels. Now, very quickly moving on to talk about some of the distinguishing features of this course. I'm sure many of you will have looked at heritage management courses or heritage courses at other universities. I think one of the key aspects of this course is that it does include the collaboration with the School of Business at Queen Mary University. And so, unlike many other courses which will tend to be theory-based, in other words, they are heritage studies courses, or they're arising out of archaeology, where heritage management is seen as essentially the management of archaeological sites. This course is looking at heritage management in a more comprehensive sense and looking at the business components of it as well. As I've already said, the course combines theory and analysis and business, but also practice-based learning. And that's something I'll be saying a little bit more about in a second, because I think that's another feature which could be regarded as a USP of the course. Students are taught at Mile End, with access to all of London's sites and heritage sites, and it can't be underestimated the value of being located in London and having access to the numerous cultural and heritage organisations that are based in and around the London area. But of course, students are also taught not just at Hampton Court Palace, which I've also already mentioned, but at Kensington and the Tower of London. And in the past, we've also done field trips to Hillsborough Castle in Northern Ireland, and we also are bringing in increasingly Kew Palace and the Banqueting House into teaching, and certainly the masterclasses include practitioners from those sites. The course welcomes applications from a variety of disciplines. So again, this isn't a course which is simply there for people from humanities backgrounds. We welcome people from all sorts of disciplines, because actually you find that people with, for example, a legal background or a science background can make a very valid contribution to heritage management, and their disciplinary expertise can be very valuable when it goes on to talking about heritage management and their career trajectory. It's worth mentioning, for example, that at Hampton Court Palace we have laboratories where scientists are conducting investigation of the environmental damage to the fabric of the buildings, and in this case you've got very hardcore natural science contributions to heritage management. So as I say, that we range across the disciplines, and similarly we range across cultures and ages and professional backgrounds, because one of the central parts of the course is the importance of diversity. Now, Ed's already mentioned this, but we do see good heritage management as involving an appreciation of the diversity of viewpoints. And one of the great features of our course has been the international composition of the student body, and the fact that students are often able to talk to each other about the heritage landscapes of their own homelands and the way in which their learning in London and in the UK could be transferred and applied within their homelands. So just to sort of focus in a little bit more detail on the actual mechanics of the course, because I think this also can be identified as a distinguishing feature. Well, first of all, we have over at Historic Royal Palaces 2 modules, and we're calling courses modules at our course, on our course. We've got 2 modules, the first of which is the Managing Heritages module. This runs across both semesters. If you're full-time, across both semesters. If you're part-time, the first and second semester of your first year. It essentially consists of masterclasses which are given by practitioners from across HRP, and it's also, generally speaking, at Hampton Court, with some of them at the Tower of London and at Kensington Palace, and involves all sorts of different activities. We've had trips up onto the roof of Hampton Court, we've had trips around the garden, we've had workshops, we've had students going away and doing research topics during the masterclasses. So a number of different activities are involved there. But one of the great things about it is that they allow students to discuss things with each other, but also with the HRP practitioners, and build up relationships with the HRP practitioners. And I think networking is one of the very important opportunities that are there within the course. If you want to know a little bit more about the Managing Heritages masterclasses, then do have a look at my Twitter site, where I have, over the past couple of years, put up a lot of images and tweets about the various activities on the masterclasses. They're very exciting, very pleasant experiences for everyone. And secondly, the second module is the Professional Practice module. Now, it's called Professional Practice, but it essentially consists of work placements across Historic Royal Palaces. And the work placements that we have had up until now have been in areas such as curating and conservation and collections care, and in operations, and in communications and development. And we possibly will have placements coming up in retail, So all of these are very interesting areas. Oh, and also finance, another area that we've had placements in. It's worth pointing to the picture here, which I think is, if I just move my window, I think on the top right of the 4 pictures in the slide, you can see one of our current students is there doing his placement with one of the curatorial staff and helping him with his research topic. The bottom left picture, by the way, is a picture of Lucy Worsley in one of our master classes with the students on the course. Yeah, sorry. So yes, the professional placements, essentially it's around a day a week, and you rotate through various areas at Historic Royal Palaces, and through the placements you work alongside HRP practitioners. Again, it's an opportunity to get to know them on a one-to-one basis and to network, and it's also an opportunity to build up your CV and also use the professional practice module to inform your dissertation topic. So I will hand you over to Ed, who will tell you a little bit about the course structure over at Queen Mary.
Thanks very much indeed, John, and you've already done more than justice to the kind of breadth of the MA, but I'm going to dig a little deeper into what happens at the Queen Mary side of things at our Mile End campus. So beginning with my own module, which is a core module called Heritage, History, Theory and Practice. This really asks you as students to take a step back and to interrogate heritage as an international, cross-cultural and also historical practice and process. So we ask a series of questions really throughout the semester on this module. For instance, what heritage actually is. John has already spoken to the ambiguity of the definition of heritage and what these differing definitions mean for the practice of heritage itself. We ask which histories are represented by heritage now and in the past, and why, and whether any histories have been excluded over time. How might heritage divide people in societies, but how might it also bring people together? And how does heritage stir our emotions psychologically? In addition to this core module, Queen Mary also offer a range of elective modules, which, as John has pointed out, really reflect the multiplicity of the programme and its unique emphasis on business. So next year we expect to have modules in brand management, human resources management, leading organisational change, managing diversity, marketing management and organisational behaviour. So you can very much see the business focus, the business sound of those modules. But we also hope to resecure modules from outside the business school, from the schools of geography and the schools of languages, linguistics and film. John's already mentioned that students write a 6,000 word dissertation. In advance of that, students are prepared by a special research design and methods module. Now, we encourage students to think of their dissertation projects as broadly as possible and to really enjoy them as much as they can, drawing on their particular and distinct interests in heritage management. And one final thing to mention is that John and I also run the leadership seminar, and I think the top left photo on John's slide is a depiction of what happens after the leadership seminar. This is a non-credit bearing module to which we invite leaders from around the cultural sector to speak about leadership and their experiences of heritage practice. So we've had Lucy Worsley speak at this, we've had Joe Norman from the V&A, we've had Halima Khanum, who's from around the corner from Queen Mary at the Tower Hamlets local history archive and library. This is an extremely good opportunity for networking and socializing over a soft drink or something a bit stronger. So John, would you mind turning to the next slide, please? Because I think we're going to talk a bit about delivery. So I wanted to mention our plans for blended learning in 2020 to 2021 in accordance with what's been happening with COVID-19 and the effect that it's had on Britain. So we're preparing to begin the next academic year with online delivery in the first semester, with a return to campus and HRP sites in the second semester. Now we have the option of extending the placement to which John referred over Easter and the summer if need be. It's difficult to give a definitive idea of your weekly timetables in advance of a new academic year. That's always the case. But in terms of time spend, I would usually say to full-time students that you will have between 1 or 2 full days per week at historic royal palaces, and those will very likely be Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Now, the QM-led modules are sort of clustered around these historic royal palaces modules, so those will likely be on Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays. And overall for full-time students, I suggest that you should expect to be at Mile End or Hampton Court or wherever historic royal palaces you happen to be between 4 or 5 days of the working week. But for part-time students, the time spend is, of course, roughly half of this. So students should expect to be at Queen Mary or HRP for 2, and I'd say no more than 3 days per week, but those won't be full days in every case. And finally, I wanted to talk about assessment, which really varies depending on which particular module you're taking. But I can say that most module organisers on this MA use coursework, so usually essay assignments, I would say, rather than exams. And there are no exams associated with the compulsory or core modules to which John and I have referred at Queen Mary or historic royal palaces. So that's all I have to say on that. Back to John.
Super, thanks very much, Ed. Well, I think that about wraps it up from our side. Just to say, we are going to have a question and answer session later on. I can see that questions have been coming in any case, but just in case you wish to fire any questions to us individually and at a later point, here are a few email addresses for you to get in contact with us. You will be receiving these email addresses in any case, and obviously you can find them on the course homepage as well. So for now, I shall say goodbye, and I shall hand on to back to Hannah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Ed and John, for that wonderful presentation. And of course, at the School of Business and Management, we want to reassure you that we are with you at every step of the way, especially during this unprecedented uncertainty. So I just wanted to provide more information about the advice and support that we are offering. So at the School of Business and Management, we can provide support in terms of academic skills as well as tutoring. And if you require any assistance in terms of welfare and you require any confidential advice, you can also approach us. And all of these services are available online. And if you wish to interact with your fellow students as well, you can still join student societies as well as clubs where you will be able to meet like-minded people, or if there is a particular activity or even a hobby that you've always been wanting to try, you can also do this. And I'd just like to play a short video for you. Please let me know if you are able to hear this. And this is basically a message from Dr. Stefan Krumacher about creating future leaders at Queen Mary.
So a good leader is somebody who is inspirational, somebody who is able to create energy and passion in a company to get great things done. I believe we are working with students in a different way. So we know our students before they arrive. So when they come, we sometimes greet them with their first name already at our socials. Then we include our students. We include our students in our teachings. We include our students in our decision makings. They have an active voice in committees, for example. We develop our students. Very important for us from a leadership perspective, for me, to show them what skills they need, to work on that skills, to educate them. We are empowering them. We are trying to give them the skills necessary in business. For example, presentation skills, communication skills. We're trying to build the confidence they need to make a difference as a future leader. I think the greatest opportunity we are offering students is we are exposing them, first of all, to real business challenges, to real business problems, to real business cases. We don't look at topics from the standard textbook approach. For example, in leadership, I would never teach my students like 8 kind of steps to be successful as a leader. I will never teach any leadership recipes. Yeah? I will rather say, okay, just imagine you would be a leader with this kind of challenge. What would you do? And then we look at kind of what other leaders did. We bring them in conference situations where they're able to meet business leaders, where they are learning from practices, where they have the chance to pick up what companies here in the city are doing. I think one of our best features here at Queen Mary is that we are very international, and not very international only from the student side, but also from the staff side. Yeah? This is a fantastic campus that allows students to build a community with friends, with colleagues that will probably last, the networks will last for many years to come. I think we are a very positive university, and that makes us different. We are a very kind of diverse university. We are a very open, friendly and inclusive place where students feel welcome from the very first day.
Great, and yes, thank you so much for listening to that. So along with these services, we also offer a bespoke careers as well as coaching service, which Ian will now talk about. So I will hand over the presentation to Ian.
Thanks, Hannah. I'm just going to share my screen. Really nice to meet you this morning. My name's Ian McLaughlin, and as Hannah said, I'm the career coach in the School of Business and Management at Queen Mary. I suppose just by way of introduction, to say that I've been with QM for about 2 years, and before that I was working in universities and other business schools in the UK and also overseas. So it's been a pleasure for me working with postgraduates like yourselves, who are looking at and exploring their career areas and possibly looking to pivot into a career or a sector that they've not been working in before. So as a career coach, that's what really sort of gives me pleasure. And what I'd like to do with you this morning is, I suppose, just give you a quick introduction to careers and what careers you may be looking at or expecting at the end of this program. I suppose, being in a business school, it's fair for me to start with just a little bit of a statistic and a fact. And the fact is, the cultural sector is large and growing. And the Creative Industries Federation estimated that in 2017, it was worth just over £101 billion, which is about a 5.5% contribution to the UK economy. So it gives you sort of an impression of the scale of the sector that you're looking at. And it's grown over the years. It's grown from 2010 to 2017. It's increased by about 50%. Now, how it will look after the current crisis, I don't know. But the impression I'm picking up from other sectors and recruiters is that it's not going to be as bad as some people are saying. So I think what I'll be wanting to do with you is to make sure that you're exploring the options and the opportunities, and those opportunities we advertise to you, but also the links that you're making and the networks that you're making through your program and from historic royal palaces. I'd also say it's quite interesting that the arts and heritage sector is also driven by the boom in computer services. So what this says to me is that the skills that you're developing from this program could lead in many different directions. And I suppose what this slide is showing you now is just some of those areas that you may be thinking about, but there may be others that you've not yet thought about. But it gives you an idea that the program and the opportunities for you are quite diverse. So I've introduced myself, and I also work with Helen Greed, who's the Employer and Engagement Coordinator. So I suppose what you could think of it as being is, I'm more focused on you and your career, and Helen is more focused on engaging with recruiters and employers. So you'll see both of us in SBM. However, it's fair to say too that there is a large team in the Careers and Enterprise department. So we consist of about 30 people in total, working across all of Queen Mary University. So there's a smaller team in SBM, but a much larger team. And if there's something you're interested in, such as enterprise and entrepreneurship, then there are colleagues of mine whose time is dedicated to that particular sector. But as a heritage manager, you're going to be responsible for conservation and management. But it's fair to say also that you'll have a broad remit with responsibilities ranging from not only preservation, but also to work perhaps on income generation or business sustainability. So the way I'm working with you, I suppose I see it in three ways. One is to look at your career skills and to take the skills that you're gaining from the MA and to see how you can apply those in work. And working with postgraduate students, as I have in the 20 or so years that I've been in careers and coaching, it's fair to say that lots of skills that you develop will be transferable. And I'm pretty sure that the heritage sector is very interested in looking at how do you promote those transferable skills. And it's, I think they are business-like. So what I would want to do is to make sure that you're able to I suppose, promote what you're learning. Put yourself ahead of the curve when you're going into the job search. So we will connect you with employers and opportunities. We have a large number of web and job postings each week. But my role, I suppose, specifically, is working on and looking at your own goals and career plans, and we'll do that over the course of the year. These are some of the events that we ran over the last year, and they are a little bit more geared towards the private sector. But that doesn't mean to say there aren't events and placements that you will have on your program. And John's mentioned some of the placements at historic royal palaces, but I just thought I'd show these as a range of the events that we offer at QM. One of the other things that we do, one of the big programs that we offer in SBM is something called Q Consult. And as a career coach, it's probably of no surprise to you that many people are interested in consulting. And consulting, of course, can go in so many different directions and so many different sectors. So we run a SBM business consultancy program. We run it twice a year. The first one is in the semester A and the second one is in semester B. And it's an opportunity for you to begin to work with clients, usually from within SBM or from within QM, and also to work within a cross team of your peers on, I suppose, problems or issues that the faculty and professional services teams are looking to find a solution to. And this is something similar I think you will be doing in the role you take in your future career. It's trying to find solutions to problems. And in my experience, so many more students now and so many more postgraduates are very interested in the area of consulting. So some of the skills you'll get from this, you'll certainly find that they are transferable. So just a little bit more about where your degree could take you. These are some of the roles and the companies, organizations that recent alumni from QM have gone into. I'm pretty sure most of these you will recognize. And this, I suppose, just demonstrates the broad areas that you can go into. I suppose I would just hover over the marketing officer, the fundraising and development, which I'm seeing more and more people interested in, and probably the opportunities are slightly greater there. But the business and product development, generating strategies to grow profits, I'm pretty sure that Historic Royal Palace is very interested in its cash flow, and is very interested to see how you will contribute to that. So maybe that's why it sits within SBM, possibly. And I thought I'd also just bring in some of the recent graduate destinations that we have put or placed graduates into. Again, names that you will instantly recognize, the Tate, the V&A, but also the civil service. So it just says to me that your degree is transferable into some departments which are probably more relevant, digital culture, media and sport, but also we've placed a student into the Cabinet Office. So as you're going through your program, do be prepared to explore, to network and investigate. And that's all I'd like to say, but hopefully I will see you more once your program starts. And for now, thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much for the information, Ian. That was very informative. And now we will hear from Paige, who's basically our, well, she's a current student at the MA Heritage Management, and she will talk to you about her student experience. Over to you, Paige.
Hello, thank you. Let me get this up real quick. Let's see. Come on. There we go. All right, so hi, my name is Paige Dixon, and I'm the current course representative for the MA in Heritage Management. That is my Heritage Management group up on the roof of Hampton Court. That was on our very first masterclass, so that was extremely cool and fun to have that as a first day. So a little about me. I'm originally from Colorado in the USA. You can probably tell I'm not originally from here. But I knew that I really, really wanted to work with British heritage and British history. So I decided to do all of my degrees over here. So I got a BA in medieval and early modern history from Bangor University, which is in North Wales, if you don't know. In the past 6 months, well, more, it was about 4 months, since January, I've been volunteering at the Foundling Museum. Fortunately, it has been closed, because of COVID. But arguably the most important thing about me is I love dogs. Anyone in the course can attest to that. I mention them all the time. I'm always pointing them out. But anyway, so there's a few reasons why I chose this MA. I knew that I always wanted to work with HRP. I visited Hampton Court Palace when I first graduated high school, and I absolutely fell in love with it and the organization. I wanted to work in heritage management in general. What really drew me to the MA was that there was actual work experience with HRP that you got to do. And also, I am a big fan of Lucy Worsley. I didn't know that she was going to be on this call, so I'm just fangirling a bit. Anyway, so a little bit about the student support at Queen Mary. First and foremost, I want you to talk to your teachers. They're more than willing to help. They should be your first point of contact, as well as your course rep. I know that I talk to students and staff all the time about various issues that they're having, or various things that they'd like to improve about the course and suggestions. There's a lot of informational sessions that are available, anything from improving your CV to improving your writing. And I know that I've personally taken a couple classes on working in the UK after graduation. So as an international student, they've talked about various visa routes and stuff like that. So there's great international student support. And for your physical ailments, there is a GP right on campus, which is fantastic. So now on to my personal MA experience. All of these pictures were either taken by me or by my course mates. So I undertook 4 placements. I did my first placement was curating, and that was at Kensington Palace. And then I did conservation and collection care at Hampton Court, marketing at the Tower of London, and then I briefly, before it was all closed, did operations at Hampton Court. So let me see. So these are, yeah, again, various pictures that I have taken. So that's at the Tower of London, there's Kensington, there's Hampton Court, various things that we have done. One of the cool things that I got to do was I got to help work on the construction of the new learning center that's part of the Orangery over at Kensington Palace. So you can see me in my hard hat and high-vis jacket. And one of the things that we got to do was we went to a traditional brick builder, which was super cool because they're making the bricks the way they did originally so that they match perfectly with the existing Kensington Orangery structure. This is also, there's the gates of Hampton Court. This is us up in the storage apartments in Hampton Court, which is really fascinating. There's all kinds of stuff that you don't normally get to see. That's one of the things that has absolutely been amazing is the closed access that you get. You get to see so many amazing things over there. So this is actually in the middle, there's a picture of a Jewish cemetery that's actually right in the middle of the Queen Mary campus. So there's not just heritage at HRP, but it's also right there on your campus. It's amazing. My favorite experience with my MA degree so far and my placements was I got to meet and speak with Prince Charles when he visited the Tower of London to see the coronet that he was wearing during his investiture as Prince of Wales. It was getting put into the crown jewels. And so I was on my marketing placement during this, and we were allowed to kind of go down and watch it happen. And he stopped in front of me, shook my hand, and asked a bit what I was doing, which was amazing. And one of my colleagues got a picture of it from way up high. So that was my favorite experience. It was absolutely amazing. A bit about living in London. There is so much to do, and I highly recommend doing as much of it as you possibly can. There are so many opportunities that you can do and take advantage of. That being said, budget yourself. It is not cheap living in London, so really budget yourself, prioritize what you really want to do. Spend time getting to know the tube and the buses because you will be using those all the time, especially to get to and from your placements. So yeah, really take advantage of living in London, but budget yourself for sure. These are some of the things that me and my course mates have done during our time in London. So some of my friends and I went and saw a West End show. We saw And Juliet, which I highly recommend. It is a fantastic show. We also went on a Christmas lights tour of London on an open double-decker bus. That was amazing. Freezing, but amazing. We went to Christmas at Kew, which is breathtaking. Beautiful, beautiful. I highly recommend it. We went to a silent disco at the Natural History Museum, which was really fun. I like because you can change the volume, so it was a bit quieter for me because I'm not a big loud music person. But also just get-togethers. We would go to various people's flats and houses and just kind of have fun get-togethers. This is us actually have a combined celebration of Chinese New Year and Australia Day. So we made a bunch of food and just kind of got together and had a bunch of fun. The best part about the MA in Heritage Management featuring HRP is hands down all of the people that you meet. They are the most amazing, wonderful people. I have made best friends for life. We do everything together. They are the most incredible people that I've ever met. You will become so close and so involved with your course mates in such a short amount of time. Then they really will become your friends for life. They're the most amazing people. Things have obviously changed a bit since COVID. So it was suggested that I would give a little bit of advice for learning from home, since you guys will be doing that during your first semester. So you will have limited resources. You won't have access to the libraries as much. I'm hoping that they'll be able to open up a bit, but really try to maximize the resources that you have, and share your resources with your course mates. That is a huge source in itself. I know that personally, I've had some of my course mates emailing me information about my dissertation, and that has been incredibly helpful. So combining your resources is such a great idea, and so really take advantage of what you have. Try increasing your skill set with online courses, so you might have a bit more free time. So I know that I have been taking some online courses from the Museums Association. So they have various courses on collections and sustainability, and I've also been taking some with Historic England. So they have various online courses that you can take. Ask for help. If you have any problems, any questions, please feel free to ask for help. I can't stress that enough. Ask for help if you need help. And I don't mind, it might not seem like it, but try to stay positive. It's all gonna be okay. It really will. You're meant to be here. You're meant to be doing this course. It's all gonna work out. So my last advice would be to do the MA. There is absolutely no other course like it. It is amazing. You get the best friends, you get the best experience. You're not going to find anywhere else that gives you this level of in-depth heritage management knowledge. It is the most fantastic experience I've ever had. Take every opportunity that comes to you. I promise you, even though it might be a lot, don't turn it down. It'll all benefit you and you will have the most amazing time. Ask for help. Again, stressing that a lot. Ask for help if you need it. And also volunteer. Volunteering is incredibly important. Something that has been stressed to us ever since we started was that employers are looking for experience most of all. So really just take advantage of the whole situation and definitely do the MA. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions or if you want more information. I am more than willing to talk to you about absolutely anything, whether it's about me personally, if it's about the course, if it's about my experience, any of it. I am more than willing to answer any questions. You can email me on my student email or have my personal email. You can also find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. Thank you so much for letting me talk to you guys. I really appreciate it and hope that you learned something. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paige. Yeah, I mean, it sounded really exciting, and I even actually want to apply for the MA now. Yes, well, joined with us today as well, Lucy Wesley, who is the Chief Curator at HRP. Would you like to say a couple of words, Lucy?
I would. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. I would like to say a little bit about what you might get to experience on the Historic Royal Palaces placements side of things. My job at Historic Royal Palaces is Chief Curator, and people often ask me, what exactly does that mean? On one level, it means going to Hampton Court Palace every day in normal times, crossing the river, walking up to the palace, going through the gate, climbing a spiral staircase of 51 steps to our curator's offices. We think we have the best offices in the world at Historic Royal Palaces in normal times. And then talking to people and drinking tea all day long and occasionally typing on the computer. But what I'm really doing when I'm doing those things is thinking about the collections work that the curators do. We acquire new treasures for the collection to show to our visitors to historic royal palaces. The historic buildings work that the curators do. So it's their job to work out exactly how old a piece of brickwork is, so that we can know whether it's okay for us to knock it down and put in a new block of toilets or not. And thirdly, another function of our team is doing research, finding out the best, the most interesting, the newest stories to engage our visitors with. So I have to say that we're the bit of historic royal palaces that I think has the most fun. Yes, I absolutely believe I've got the best job in the world. Now, you know already that the placements that are available to you are not just in the curators team. Historical research might be your bag, but it could be that you want to do the other placements that are in finance or in marketing. As Paige was saying, they've trained you well in marketing. Paige, you did a fantastic job at marketing the course just now. You might end up in operations, in conservation, of course, or communications, because this isn't a course for people who want to be curators. It's a course for people who want to be the CEO in the heritage industry. It gives you a wonderful understanding of all the different branches underneath the bonnet of the business. And there's something I particularly wanted to say to you about communications, because I know some people who'd applied for the course saw HRP announcing a new fundraising campaign last week. And some of them wrote to John Davies and said, what's going on? Why does HRP need support? Are you going to go bust? Well, the answer is no, we're not going to go bust. Times are extremely challenging to us at the moment, but we've got a plan. We've got a plan to get through it. And what's going to be really interesting for the cohort starting this autumn, we'll be seeing an organization going through a rapid period of change and struggle and ultimately survival, I think. And that's that call for action to our supporters asking for money to help the charity keep going, that was very calculated move that was part of a thought through communication strategy. And it had immediate results. We got a gift overnight of $500,000 from one of our very precious American supporters. So that was going on there. It looks like we might be on the edge. We are on the edge, but we're not. We're going to come back from that edge. We've got things in hand. Now, why would you want to work in this whole industry of heritage? You might think it's cool to hang out in a palace. Obviously, it is. But as Paige was saying, actually, I think there's something more sort of fundamental about that. It's possible that you've been drawn to this course and this opportunity because you want to work with people who have a sense of common purpose. And that's what we have at Historic Royal Palaces. We don't work there for the money. We don't work there for just for fun, although there is a lot of fun involved. We work there because we think that sharing history is important. Getting people to understand about history and conservation are important things for society. We're there to do good in the world, if you like. So if you too feel like you would like to do good in the world, combined with a really detailed technical knowledge of how to make organizations like Historic Royal Palaces work, then this will be the course for you. Thanks for listening, and thanks for having me, Hannah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Lucy, and we hope that our audience found that more informative. So we are now open for questions, and we do have a question over here for you, Ed or John, if you would like to answer. So the question is semester one completely online with no placement until the new year?
Hi, Hannah. Hopefully everyone can see and hear me. The answer to the question is probably yes. We are planning for semester one to be online. We've made arrangements so that you will still be doing the placements, but we've actually moved the start dates for the placements into January. So you would be, instead of starting in September, you'll be starting in January, but you still do the same amount of placement. And in fact, for next year, we've agreed that we would run the placements on into the summer period, or allow them to go on into the summer period, which in many ways has the benefit of seeing the palaces when they are at their most spectacular. So this is when the gardens are looking absolutely brilliant, and it's a great place to be around. And also, of course, as the summer sets in, we get large numbers of visitors coming in, and the whole process and business of heritage management gets that much more interesting. So I think that in some ways there's a silver lining here associated with moving the placement element, and you shouldn't lose out particularly by the fact that we're delivering remotely. The side of things which would be remote from historic royal palaces is the masterclasses. But as I say, the placement would be unaffected. Otherwise, the modules at Queen Mary, I think, would be delivered remotely as well. So that's in line with practice at Queen Mary. Ed, I can see you nodding. I don't know if you want to say anything.
Absolutely, yeah. It's worth bearing in mind that John and I, for instance, have been honing our skills over the summer to make sure that the content that we produce for you in semester one is as good as it would be had we been teaching you in person. So we're looking at ways to make the sessions as interactive as they can possibly be, and to reflect what would normally be the case. So hopefully there'll still be great opportunities for you all to get to know each other, albeit in an online space. And then, of course, in January, we should be back in a situation where we can all get together in person. And yeah.
Now, having said all that, which is the official stance, many of you will have seen that things are beginning to unlock at heritage sites. So we're already letting visitors back into the gardens at the palaces, and the latest government guidance is that museums and galleries will begin opening, or may begin opening up in July. Yes, so celebrations all round. But I'm keeping a very careful eye on this because I realise just how important it is to all our students to have access to the palaces. So we'll be in discussion with the palaces about this, and believe me, if we can get you in, we will. We'll see about how much teaching can actually take place on site in semester one as well, as part of the master classes. As I've already mentioned, some of the master classes involved outdoor activity, and as Paige has pointed out, one of them involved being up on the roof of Hampton Court. So quite whether or not we will be able to do this or not remains to be seen, and it's a moving target, but we will certainly be doing our best to maximise the opportunities.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We hope that answered your question. There is a follow-up question here that says, will the placement moving to the summer impact the dissertation study time? Will the dissertation be altered at all?
We've had a discussion about that, and actually we think there are going to be potentially advantages. The placement, you would have begun the placement in semester two, so actually the lion's share of the placement will have happened during semester two. You'll then be able to continue on through what might be either through the Easter period or through the assessment period into the summer, and it should be relatively easy in a short space of time to make up the placement element. But as I say, there are advantages to this too, because an aspect of the dissertation, which I mean, it's very early in the day to be considering this, but is the way in which the dissertation can build upon your practice-based experience whilst at HRP. So in some ways, there can be advantages to actually still being on site, working alongside practitioners whilst you're undertaking your research. And so I think, you know, whilst yes, you may be spending a few days over the summer period working on site, and theoretically that might take some time out of the time that you would devote to your dissertation. Arguably, you could say that actually there are efficiencies to be gained because you will be doing the two things at the same time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We hope that answered your question. Another question that we received is, do you have any reading recommendations which we could start in advance of the course?
No, I think probably Ed's best place to answer this.
Absolutely. I think rather than list titles to you here, it may be a good idea for me to disseminate to anyone who's interested a list of useful works that you can find online, useful articles that may get you in the kind of mindset we want for asking the kinds of questions that we're going to ask in September. So perhaps it'll be possible to liaise with you, Hannah, and find a way of distributing that to people.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine.
I can see
have...
that Lucy has her hand up as well, sorry.
Oh yes, go on, sorry Lucy.
Could I just add, if you'd like to get more of a flavour of the work of Historic Royal Palaces, there's available to you at the moment an opportunity every other Thursday night on the platform Crowdcast. You'll find it very easily online. And I'm interviewing different colleagues from around the organisation about the work they do, actually, which would give you an insight into the sort of people you could potentially be doing your placements with in due course.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Sorry, just to follow up on Ed's statement about us sending you the information. So what we will do is send you a follow-up email after the webinar today, and we will include the information there. I hope that works. And
Wonderful. Thanks, Hannah.
no worries. Okay, and our next question is, how does signing up for placement work? Is it first come, first serve?
Well, you see, I have a sort of I have a process for dealing with this. So the way that we have managed it in the past is that I essentially I ask all the incoming students to tell me what their priority areas are and tell me a little bit about their career plans. And then I look at the placements that we have available, and I try and make sure that everyone gets a bit of what they want to do, but everyone gets a bit of things that they don't necessarily want to do, but it would actually benefit them to know about. And so, generally speaking, last year, for example, I think Paige mentioned that we had 4 areas, and everyone got their first, second, and mostly third choices. So that was very useful. I think next year, probably the placements, given the situation with COVID, these choices probably going to be slightly more limited. But nevertheless, I will be doing some consultation with you about the kinds of areas that you do want to experience and trying to accommodate those. And I'll hand over to Lucy.
Don't forget the student, John, who didn't want to do conservation, did the conservation placement, and then wanted to become a conservator. The placement might change your mind.
Absolutely right. And it's quite interesting that there's also been, I've had several students who've said at the outset they wanted to be curators. And then they've engaged with, I think it was the public engagement and interpretation areas, and they moved off in that direction. So I think one of the notable features about the course is that it does allow people to transfer their career aspirations from one area to another, and we try and make sure through the placements that people do get a broad-based understanding of heritage and the range of careers that are on offer across heritage. And again, that is probably one of the distinguishing features of the course. So there are heritage courses around the country and around the world which are particularly focused on curating or on conservation. This isn't that type of course. It's a course which is there to give people a broad-based understanding and allow them some element of knowledge and experience on which they can then base their career trajectories. And quite often people come onto the course not really knowing which area they want to go into, and the course is kind of helping them formulate that decision. Hannah, over to you.
Yeah, okay, well, great. Thank you so much. We received a question that says, how many students typically undertake the course per year?
I was happy to answer this, Hannah, or John.
No,
I was going to suggest that the sort of minimum number is likely to be around 15, but the maximal figure will be around 30. And I say around because there are part-time and full-time students, so there's some degree of fluctuation there, but there won't be any more than 30 taking the course at one time around that figure. And I was also going to follow up, Hannah, with a question asked by Matilda about resources, which Paige has already very helpfully answered in part. I was going to add to it by saying that on my module, Heritage, History, Theory and Practice, all of the resources, all of the main resources and most of the sort of extra resources are available online anyway. So that shouldn't be a problem. And indeed, as far as I'm aware, that's normal practice throughout the whole business school. So I would be very surprised if you miss out on any crucial resources as a result of lockdown and that distance.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Ed, as well as Paige. Yes, Matilda, the library is currently working hard to put all of the resources online.
Shall I also add something about the historic royal palaces side?
Yes, please.
Obviously, we're expecting students to draw on the material which is in the library at Queen Mary and elsewhere. Students often go to the British Library as well, in terms of the scholarly material. But for example, the masterclasses, we had about 35 practitioners from across HRP give masterclasses this year. Each of them will supply material which relates particularly to their area of practice as we progress through the course. So that material is often in-house relating to HRP, or it's coming from the area of practice, and we supply that then via the online learning platform which Queen Mary operates. So students get access to those things via the online learning platform. So it's really a kind of combination of practice-based professional information and the scholarly literature which is available through Queen Mary's Library and other libraries.
Okay. Thank you so much, John. That was very informative, especially with what the HRP, sorry, yes, Lucy.
So sorry, everybody. I'm afraid I have another meeting at 12:15, so I'm going to give my apologies and leave now. Thank you so much for having me, and hope to meet some of you in the flesh one day. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy.
Lucy.
Cheers. Great. Yes, and now we have a question about placement. Can students come up with their own placement project?
Well, I mean, firstly, the placements are, you essentially are given a placement which involves working with a practitioner. So most of the time, there will be a piece of work which needs doing within a particular area, and you will be working alongside a practitioner on that piece of work. But it might be the case, for example, if you are working with a curator on a particular research assignment, it might be the case that the curator gives you the opportunity to come up with your own approach or undertake your own research in relation to that project. So there may be some area of flexibility there. Now, I'll just come back to the dissertation for a second, because I think, again, it's worth just stepping back and looking at the purpose and the value of the dissertation. There is a danger, I think, that people come from an undergraduate degree onto a postgraduate degree and think, oh, the dissertation is just another piece of assessment I'll have to get through. But I would say the dissertation is actually a major opportunity for pursuing a project which really interests you, really motivates you, and also which really plows back into your career plans. Now, you will have undertaken several placements as part of your HRP experience. If, for example, you are particularly fired up by an aspect of conservation, I know, for example, that some of our students have been, I don't know, either shocked, horrified, or particularly motivated by insects and the impact of insects on textiles. This is something which, you know, some of the students get really fired up by. But anyway, if, for example, you wanted to look at this in greater detail and you wanted to make this a sort of particular career specialist area, then the dissertation is an opportunity for you to then take that question forward, build on the experience that you've had from the placement, and then use the networks that you formed during the placement to work with the practitioner on that particular research project. So I would say to you, the dissertation gives you the ability to really focus in on an area of practice that you've encountered during your placement, even if during the placement itself you might be simply undertaking a piece of work which a department wants you to undertake in order to get the experience.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We hope that answered your question. And we have another one here asking, is there any advice for a student who shall be commuting? At the moment, we are still following the government's advice in terms of health and safety. And as John and Ed has mentioned, the first semester, it is planned to be conducted online. So there shouldn't be any need to commute until a further notice from the government. But if you are required to commute, an advice would be to follow the government regulations, especially wearing a face mask. And if you are feeling unwell, then please get in touch with medical professionals and let them know about your symptoms, and to, in the meantime, self-isolate. Are you able to add anything else to that? Or if anyone else has anything to say in regards to the question, please feel free.
Paige.
Some of my course mates have been commuting over the past year, and so things that I've learned from them is, I mean, under normal circumstances, make sure that you check the weather and traffic conditions, and make sure you have enough time to get to where you're going. Also, if you are commuting and if you do come to campus, plan to be on the campus the whole day, maximize your day. So really just check to make sure that the traffic, weather, make sure you've got enough time, and also pick a few days of the week to spend the entire time on the campus or in London. So hopefully that helps a bit.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that was very informative. Thank you so much, Paige. Does anybody have any further questions? Okay, well, we'll stay for another 5 minutes and we will do our best to answer your remaining questions before the webinar concludes. And in the meantime, Ed or John or even Paige, do you have any message to our participants today?
Well, I would simply reiterate that you know, we're looking forward to seeing you in September, and you know, I think as Paige has pointed out, this is a really exciting opportunity, and alongside the academic side of things, I think it's just an absolutely fantastic social experience. One of the great things about Historic Royal Palace has been all the kind of, I suppose, extracurricular activity that goes on around the palaces, and Paige showed kind of the meeting with Prince Charles, but there are all sorts of other events and things which have been going around the palaces, and generally speaking, students have got themselves involved in all sorts of evening events and so forth, and helped out with filming and helped out with volunteering, and so I think probably the kind of headline is that the sky's the limit. You can get out of the course what you put in, and one of the messages which I think Ed and I really try and transmit at the start of the course is really do try and extract the absolute maximum out of the course in terms of experience and in terms of networking and in terms of establishing those contacts with practitioners that you're then able to use and exploit as you move beyond the course into a career. As I've said before, HRP has a particular reputation, a particular profile in the heritage sector. And so I think, you know, an aim would be, for example, to try and make sure that you get practitioners from HRP to act as referees when you're going for a job and work elsewhere, and also simply to kind of have a conversation with them about your careers. I mean, the nice thing about the placements is that it does put you into often a one-to-one kind of situation working alongside practitioners, and you're then able to have a chat with them about what you want to do and where you want to go, and get their experience and advice about that journey. So as I say, it's a fantastic opportunity. Yes, and just also with respect to the masterclasses, I mentioned that you have masterclasses from, I think I said something like 35 practitioners. Those masterclasses included presentations by possibly the majority of the executive board of HRP. So I know we had the director of operations, we had director of communications, we had Lucy Worsley, and we also had John Barnes, who's the current chief executive of HRP. We also had a masterclass by the former chief executive of HRP, Michael Day, who's now, I think, a trustee for the National Trust. So we've got some pretty high profile, hard-hitting people presenting. And as I said, the masterclasses aren't all one way. It's an opportunity for students to ask questions and really test the people. And another thing which I think Ed probably could say something about is we do welcome, or we encourage in students to adopt a critical approach when they're looking at heritage practice. And so one of the really interesting things about the course is the way in which we have these practitioners coming into the masterclasses, and then they engage in discussion with the students, and often have quite a kind of searching conversation about their own areas of practice. So it's a kind of two-way street, really. But the main point is you have got this ability and opportunity to converse. And I think we also, had sort of lots of opportunities for informal conversation as well. So, Ed, I don't know if you're able to add anything.
Yeah, I'd only really reiterate what you've said there, John. In my view, the two halves, as it were, of the MA are well integrated with each other, not least because John and I spend a great deal of time working with each other to make sure that they are. And the kind of critical side of things, as it were, is not an afterthought. It's something that is designed for you to take with you as you work at historic royal palaces and you think about heritage. And of course, as John alluded to earlier, this is a time in which heritage is very much in the headlines, and we would certainly hope that this MA would provide you with the tools with which to understand what's going on at the moment, but also to lead those discussions as well. And just two things that I briefly want to draw on and re-emphasize that John has already said is that the MA is really what you make of it, and I think that Paige is actually a fantastic example of this. She's taken advantage of all of the opportunities that exist at HRP, but also has really thrown herself into those kinds of critical discussions around heritage that you would have if you're on the MA. And in addition to that, it is truly remarkable how tight-knit the cohort of students has been this year in particular, but also last year as well. It's a great group of students who get along with each other, and that comes out in the quality of the discussions that they have with each other and how much respect that they have for each other as well. And they are not distinct from us as a community. John and I are very much, we like to think, part of this MA community as well, and we're very much devoted to the students and care a great deal about their progress throughout the course of the year. Paige, I don't know whether you want to add anything at all.
Yeah, just to kind of go off of what you were saying. Yeah, you guys are very much part of the course. I mean, we had the Christmas party, which is super fun. We did a Secret Santa, in which John and Ed were both a part of. That was fun. With the leadership seminars afterwards, there's food and drink, and so it's a great time to socialize. Yeah, it's the most amazing experience I've ever had. You learn so much. You get experiences that you never thought you'd be able to have, and you meet the most amazing people, not just in your course, but the people who come and talk to you, the people who are giving the presentations to your classes. It's absolutely amazing. If you're going to pick any MA, pick this one. There's nothing else like it.
Thank you so much for your messages. We hope that was helpful to everybody. So we have about 5 more minutes until this webinar concludes. So do send us your final questions. And I will also post the email contacts that you can get in touch with if you have any follow-up questions after this session.
It's worth saying that John and I are always happy to respond to questions that you have, so please send them along. There's no such thing as a silly question.
Okay, so we have a question here. Will the tuition fee be modified as a result of the COVID situation? Are you able to answer this?
My understanding is that the tuition fees are staying where it is at the moment, so I haven't picked up that there is a discussion about this yet. Ed, I'm not sure whether you're able to say anything further about that.
That's exactly my understanding, John.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And another question here is, how many taught modules are taken per semester?
It's a very good question. It depends if you're doing it full-time or part-time. For full-time students, you would be taking my core module in the first semester, and you would be taking 1 elective module as well. Then in the second semester, you would be taking, sorry, I missed Managing Heritages in the first semester as well, which is John's module. Managing Heritages continues into the second semester, which would be when you would start your placement module as well. Then there will be 2 elective modules in the second semester, and the Research Design and Methods module in the second semester as well. So to my mind, I think that's 5 if you count Managing Heritages carried over. And then into the summer, as we said, we expect that the placements may continue, but in addition to that, you would be carrying out your dissertation work as well. Part-time students, that's spread over the 2 years. I'm happy to give more information by email if you're a prospective part-time student and you would want more information about that.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so any last questions before we conclude? And yes, thank you, Paige, for sharing your information as well. Okay, so we don't have any more questions, so we're going to assume that we have answered all of them and that you found this webinar quite informative. We're looking forward to welcoming you in September. We've also left our contact details on the chat, where you will be able to view this and send us any questions whenever you need to ask any questions, really. And we hope for you to be well, and yes. Any other comments from you?
Only to thank you very much indeed, Hannah, for organising this and facilitating it as well, and to everyone else for their contributions.
Okay, cheers. Thank you so much. And just to inform everybody that, yes, the session is recorded and we will send this to you via email, along with the reading list for heritage management from Ed. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks very much.